Hello everyone, this is Professor Hill. This is a short video for our class, Introduction to Ethics, Philosophy 2306. Here at St. Philip's College, this is the fall 2018 semester. This is the online version of the class. And this is Thursday, September the 6th, 2018. We're looking at Chapter 1 in our textbook, Doing Ethics by Lewis Vaughn. And we're preparing for our first major assignment, an essay. We're going to write it as part of a discussion we're going to have about a case study once we get to the end of this chapter. Now, we've been looking at ethics, the philosophical study of morality, and morality being our beliefs about good and bad, right and wrong. Well, the author, Lewis Vaughn, also breaks down 4 different types of ethics, including descriptive ethics, which he describes as the scientific study. Again, like we saw the survey done by the Pew Charitable Trust, the views on global morality, where we had a chance to see some of the really wide differences from culture to culture on, in that case, 8 particular moral issues. Now, there's also normative ethics. These are the norms or standards, the principles, values, beliefs, which are either personal to us or consistent across a particular state, country, culture. And this was not to say that there's not, significant minority views, but that there's a standard or norm that we can describe and attach to that particular person or culture. Now, we also saw that sometimes those norms get applied to particular professions. That was where the applied ethics comes in, practical professional ethics, where you have self-regulation of a profession by those professionals with a code of ethics. They're not laws, they're different, and as we saw, there can be penalties, sanctions, such as a letter of reprimand or suspension, even having your license from the state pulled for violation of those applied ethics. That left us with the last one, which is metaethics. And again, these are the 4 that Lewis Vaughn identifies in Chapter 1 of his book, Doing Ethics. So metaethics is really the study of the meaning and the logical structure of ethics. This is kind of, think about it this way, which is you're looking at norms. You had them described by some survey, and you're kind of now standing back. This is kind of meta, just literally means above. And you're standing back, standing over, looking down, and you're thinking about what's the meaning? What's the structure? And this is a process of kind of asking ourselves why. When we look at our own moral norms, we want to say, well, look, do these still make sense to us in the light of lived experience? Sometimes that answer is yes, they do. And we confirm that even upon reflection, this is what we think is right and wrong, good and bad. Sometimes those things evolve slowly over time in individuals and in societies at large. So those things can change. Those are the 4 basic types of ethics that Lewis Vaughn lays out in that first chapter. Now, he goes on to talk about the elements of ethics, and again lays out 4, and one of which is the preeminence of reason. And I want to talk about this. This is the first of the 4, because he says something which I think makes sense, but then I'm going to diverge from him. And here's the thing that I think makes sense. He wants to say, if we're building a sense of morals for ourselves, our beliefs about good and bad, right and wrong, which we do slowly over time, then we want to give reason a preeminent place in that process, meaning that when we make moral decisions, it needs to be something we do with the rational side, the reason side of our being. Now, I can tell you, he goes a little further than that. He doesn't just say that reason should be preeminent among these other factors. He goes out of his way to say, don't trust those other factors. And this is where I break with him a little bit. But he says this. I got the book right here today. And he's talking about emotions and feelings. And he's saying, don't trust them. And he's pretty clear about this. He says, look, feelings are an important part of our moral experience. They make empathy possible, which gives us a deeper understanding of the human impact of moral norms. They also can serve as internal alarm bells, warning us of the possibility of injustice or suffering, wrongdoing. Yeah, you could almost hear the but coming. But he says they are unreliable guides to moral truth. Wow. But they are unreliable guides to moral truth. That is a lot in that little sentence. We want to unpack some of that. He says they may simply reflect our own emotional needs, prejudices, upbringing, culture, and self-interest. Okay. Careful reasoning, however, can inform our feelings and help us decide moral questions on their merits. Okay, so look, here's the thing about that. He's saying that at first he kind of says with the title, Preeminence of Reason. So that would be first among these different aspects. Because listen, the fact of the matter is, look, we're human beings, and we have a lot of complex dimensions or sides to us, right? We have reason, but we also have the emotions, which he's talking about. But look, we have a psychological side, a physical side, an emotional side, spiritual side. We got all these dimensions and aspects to us. We are multi-layered creatures. I would tell you that you want to bring all of that, all of who you are, to ethical decision making. I think that makes good sense. I would tell you that you can trust those aspects of yourselves. And I would agree with them that of them, you still want reason to be first and foremost, to be preeminent in moral decision making. But when he says, and this is where I think he just goes wrong, he says you can't trust your feelings because they may simply reflect our emotional needs, prejudices, upbringing, culture, self-interest. I'm like, well, newsflash, so can your thinking. It's not like your reason has somehow escaped cultural influences. We've been shaped by this in fundamental ways, and it's not like our family, our culture, language, every aspect of that influences our feelings, but not our reasoning. No, of course it affects our reasoning and our thinking and our judgment. Now, if he's going to try to say, oh, there's some perfect thinking or logic which can get you to the right answer, to the moral truth of a situation by just shunting away the feelings and only applying cold, calculated reason, the problem with that is, there's lots of problems with that. But it's also explicitly why we picked the Jenny Lake case right off the bat. The Jenny Lake case, our case study, is difficult, it's painful, it ends badly, it's always going to end badly. It is a true story about a young girl trying to make an extraordinarily difficult, overwhelming decision. Is there always a danger that our emotions can overwhelm us and impair our reason? Yes. But I don't think that's a reason to dismiss them or somehow say that they're unreliable guides to the right answer. This is based on the assumption that there's a right answer out there, and it's our job just to think clearly and logically enough to get to it. I got to tell you, I'm not sure it works like that. I would never advise you to pretend to be a computer or Mr. Spock or something crazy like that, and that there's somehow a logical answer to that moral and ethical dilemma that Jenny Lake faces. I would say, especially on the difficult cases, that we should try to bring our whole human experience to those terrible choices. So, look, does he say reason should be preeminent? Yes, and I agree with him. We've got common ground there. Do I think you should get rid of your feelings as you're making these choices? No, I don't. So that's the first one. And what he's trying to do here is he's going to lay out 4 things which he thinks need to apply to you forming a coherent, meaningful set of values and beliefs, rules and principles upon which to build your ethical decision making. We'll get into the universal perspective, the principle of impartiality, the dominance of moral norms. I'll handle some of that tomorrow. But for now, I just wanted us to have a brief conversation about the preeminence of reason and the role of reason along with the other aspects, the other dimensions of who you are as a person. So, again, it's a lot to try to bring to bear as you're thinking about the concepts from this chapter and about the upcoming case study and where that fits in. People have been asking me, well, how do I do that? If I read the chapter, how do I bring them into the discussion about Jenny Lake? Well, this is a good one right there. Do you think that there's one clear right answer and that you've got it, and if someone disagrees with you, they're wrong? Can two people come out with different thinking about this and both be right? Or is one always going to be wrong and the other right? And there's one last thing I want to say about it. I had a student that came by the office, which is, again, you're always welcome. And we had this conversation. And he was saying, well, I just want to respect her decision. And I said, that's great. She was the decision maker. Hold that thought for a second. But I also want to know what you think. What would you have done in that situation if you were pregnant and had cancer? If it was your partner, your spouse, your wife, what would your take on it be? What do you think is right and wrong, good and bad in this situation, and why? That's a different thing than just saying, oh, I'm going to respect whatever she decides. That doesn't work. I'm going to force you to make a decision here. And the last thing I'll say today is this. I'll form it like a question and come back to it tomorrow. Is Jenny Lake the decision maker here? And if so, why? Is it Jenny? Is it her boyfriend who's got an interest in the baby? Is it her parents? Is it the doctors? Who makes this decision and why? Think about that. We'll come back to it tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.